hier haben. Herzlich willkommen auf der Bühne. Welcome. I have the title of your speech. It is half in English and half in German.
Is
so
it?
what
My
language
German is
will
not
you be
that
in?
good. I can
Okay.
say wunderbar, but it's not part of the title.
So we will have the speech in English, and the title is Renewable Resource of the Marketplace. Wie trendig ist die Trendforschung? Bitte schön.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very good to be here. May I have the microphone? The remote. Is it this one? All right. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a big pleasure to be here in this quite high-level conference about business. My name is Chiara Palieri. I'm 22 years old, born and bred in Italy, but I moved to Scotland to start university, and I've been quite active in the last 6 years as a high-level conference speaker, advocate for education and women's rights, and consultant and lobbyist for international organizations and governments. So what I want to do today, I will be very concise with my presentation, and I want to give you a first-hand input of what Generation Y is. You all belong to the business world, but maybe you're not too familiar with what are the dynamics that my generation is experiencing. So this is what I would like to do with my presentation. And my presentation will be structured in the following way. I will be giving you an input on a survey on which I've been working on 3 years ago with the Generation Europe Foundation, which is one of the foundations I've been working as a consultant. And after that, I will explain you basically some background about the survey, and then I will explain more what are the fears that my generation is experiencing. And in the final part, I would like to give you some feedback and some suggestions for you as business to include and to be more familiar with what Generation Y is expecting from the workplace. So we were talking about before about innovation, but how can we talk about innovation without talking about young people? And this is really what the meaning of my presentation is about. It is a question of what can Gen Y do for your business? How can you use the inputs that Gen Y has? How can you use the skills that this new generation has in order to shape the decision making in your company, shape the outcomes you want to reach, and shape also the new ethics of what you do in your business? So this survey is gonna basically tell us that Generation Y is a very proactive generation with lots of fears. My generation has been through a lot. Obviously, the crisis has been a huge factor that has somehow diminished our confidence in finding a meaningful job. And definitely, we haven't been equipped with the right skills. I'm a student myself, even if I keep myself quite busy, as you've been seeing from the leaflet. Often we don't have guidance, a proper one. Maybe we do have some kind of feedback, but it's not enough. It's just not something that can help us actually enter the workplace and work effectively in business. And since everything is lacking under this point of view, freelance options are actually something tangible that young people do take in consideration in order to make money and possibly start their own career. So obviously, Generation Y, with all these challenges ahead, is not prepared for employers to take advantage of them. So it is quite difficult for us to, and for me, even if I come from a quite privileged background, because I've been active in all these years, it's still quite terrifying, the idea that after graduation, it's very difficult to find something that is going to reward our human potential. So the survey has gathered over 7,000 responses across all Europe, and over 70% of the interviewees were educated or to graduate or level higher. 58% were from Western Europe, 38% were from Eastern Europe, 90% were between the 80s and the 90s true Gen Yers, and 70% studying or seeking work. Over 2,700 people responded to our one question, which was basically a feedback question about what are the real solutions that we can suggest to businesses, like what can we actually say to people who want to employ young people, and what are the steps from university to the workplace that are going to help young people enter the workforce. So obviously, Generation Y is, I don't know if you heard about it, but it's basically, it gathers the biggest number ever exist of young people on Earth. And it is quite striking because obviously we do have a curriculum that is completely different from possibly your generation. We do have to do with the interconnectedness of the world. We have to do with social media. We have to deal with challenges the other generation were not basically able to face. And basically, only 30% were positive about the prospects. I'm one of them, almost. And basically, the major comment about this kind of question was that basically employers do not want to spend money and time in order to train fresh graduates because it's time-consuming, is obviously is resource-consuming in times of crisis. Priorities are different, and you come in from the business sector, you might know better than me. And females, surprisingly, are less pessimistic than men, which is quite surprising even for me, because don't get me started on the glass ceiling otherwise. Okay, why are we so unenthusiastic, sorry. The problem is the university programs should change to better fit the needs of the market. And it's useless to spend years if then the skills that we acquired are not useful to the job market. I'm a politic, I'll be graduating in June in international politics, but obviously my skills are quite up in the air for how much I love politics. But for example, my brother is an electronic engineer, and all the things he's learned are not necessarily indispensable for the job he has now, even if it's still a position for an electronic engineer, which then basically shows us the discrepancy between the academic study and the real world. And over 50% did not have career guidance whatsoever. Only 40% of those who had find it useful, which is obviously quite of a poor statistics and does not really show much success. Many universities have career centers, but a good deal of them do not operate as well as they are not an integral part of the system. My university does have some kind of career guidance, but unfortunately is not a project that's been implemented correctly in order to give young people the right skills. So finding employment is the biggest challenge the Generation Y is facing. Not because of a surprise, also the other generation have been dealing with that. But the problem, obviously, is that recession and crisis have been a massive problem for us. Thus, for example, if we think about the working opportunities that are available, there are very little, and most of them are even unpaid. Just to give you an example, even working for the United Nations as an intern, it would be basically free. You wouldn't get paid. You would need to sustain yourself in New York. You would have to pay, obviously, accommodation, food, travel. And this is somehow, in my perception, a bit of a waste of human talent, because it's good to work and it's good to volunteer, but once you have to survive, you don't really have much of a chance to do it. So an internship is a good place, but drastic change must be made. And you come in from the business sector, maybe have youth-friendly policies that you've been implementing, or maybe internship programs that are great stepping stone to success in your own corporate. And then, obviously, we need to build up a CV that is appealing to corporates and that makes a statement as soon as we get in the room. So, obviously, since standard jobs are not available, Gen Y is one of those generations who has to come up with new solutions. And there we go with startups, freelance jobs, and all that kind of thing. But what is the biggest challenge that we face from 1986 down? It is the biggest paradox, which is no experience, no job, and no job, no experience. But what matters the most in the job? basically is to know that what you've been studying for is actually something that is useful to what you're doing in your job. You need to have a meaningful and sustainable job that help you realize your full human potential, because otherwise, what is the point in working, really? We don't live to work, and we don't work to live. Company ethics and company reputation, well done, the list is sustainability. And this finding was very different to another survey we've done to monitor the difference between Generation X and Generation Y. And so what do we come on with the survey? Basically, that young people are very much discouraged towards the future. I gave an interview on CNN about the Euro crisis and youth unemployment, and this was exactly my idea. The idea that obviously, as a young person, I don't feel empowered to think that my future is going to be bright. I know I have to work hard, but obviously, the whole environment does not make me necessarily wish for the best. And me and other people, obviously, we don't feel equipped for the world of work. Obviously, employers are valuing experience over education, and economic reality is submerging their beliefs in ethics and values. So this is the last part of my presentation, which is a bit of a feedback from someone who hasn't entered the workforce yet, but has done many things between corporates, governments, and institutions. So especially related to you from the business sector, you need to use your influence. Do you know the Generation Y people that are in your company? Do you know what are the challenges? Have you created policies that include young people better? Do you know if what you've done is enough, basically, to empower young people in your own business? And obviously, this is all a matter of policies and a whole system, radical change that needs to happen. But I would like to conclude by saying that if you do not invest in people, you're really wasting human potential, and that's going to be basically the reason of your failure. So thank you very much, and I hope there will be questions.
Thank you so much. These were brief, excellent, concise insights. And now it's your turn, dear audience.